Welcome all to the ForeverGreen Trails Annual Meeting. I'm John Palmer, the president of ForeverGreen Trails, and excited to be here and see all of you. Our annual meeting is an opportunity for us as members of ForeverGreen Trail to get together and talk and do some business that we need to do, update our board members, look at our work plans, and talk about some projects and get some feedback. So it's an opportunity to do all that at our meeting. So excited that you're all here to participate in this. In terms of the organizations that you see up here, we have about 10 that are local government. You can see the symbols up there. 4 nonprofits and 2 businesses, and about 75 individuals. So that's our membership organization. ForeverGreen Trails has always had a strong orientation to local governments, because kind of the niche of ForeverGreen Trails is to partner with local cities and the county to help get these trails built, and it's the jurisdictions that actually, physically contract and get the work done. And our sponsors, Foothills Trails, Rails Trails, Parametrics, Pasamas, our newest one, Puget Sound Energy, City of Lakewood, Cascade Bicycle Club, and Sound Credit Union. So warm welcome to our sponsors and all our members. So thank you all for being here. So I'm going to quickly move on to do a quick review of the agenda. So here's the agenda for the day. The first thing we're going to do is WSDOT is here to do an update on the spuyaləpabš trail. So a couple more words about that in a second. So we'll start with that, then turn it over to Larry. And Larry is going to go through some of our business stuff in terms of board elections, take a peek at our 2026 draft work plan, some ForeverGreen updates, and some feedback from you. And then after we're done here, we're going to go over to the forum for a little social hour. So hopefully you can do that. So that's our agenda for the next bit. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Steve Fox and Ricky Balhall, and I guess you guys could come up here. I am super excited to hear the latest on this. When I was Puyallup mayor from 2018 to 2020, I was participating on the work group, or the regional work group, to get this trail envisioned and funded and off the ground. And when we were doing that work, the projections are way out, right? 7-10 years before we get this. But lo and behold, that time goes by, and next thing we know, it's around the corner. So I am super excited to hear the latest, and turn it over to Steve and Rick.
Well, we are excited to be here to give everyone an update. So we're going to give an overview of the overall SR 167 completion project. We're going to give an overview of the spuyaləpabš trail. We're going to talk a little bit about our collaboration with our partners and our trail artwork. We're going to give you an update on the progress and the timeline for completion of the trail. We'll look at the places where the trail transitions to other trail networks, and then we'll just talk about next steps and then open it up for Q&A. So this image here shows the overall 167 completion project. So that's from clear out on the east end, where we kind of tie in with SR 410. We have work all the way out almost to where SR 410 is on the very east end. And then, as you can see, the alignment, it traverses kind of through the valley, crossing over many local streets, and then ultimately connecting with I-5, and then tying in ultimately with State Route 509 down near the intersection at Alexander. So that's approximately 6 miles from one end to the other. And our project is broken into 4 construction stages. So stage 1A, kind of shown in black there, built the Wapato Way Bridge over I-5 and then roundabout on 99, and built the new interurban trailhead parking facility. That's complete, open to traffic. Stage 1B is the big project work that you see right now between I-5 and SR 509, and that's under construction. Stage 2A is also under construction. If you just down the street here, you've seen the work beginning at Meridian and to the west and east. And that is been under construction now this last construction season. And then the final project, which is in green, is what we call our stage 2B. And that project, we are in what's called phase 1 of a progressive design build contract. And that contract is executed, and we expect to move into phase 2, which is final design and construction around April of 2026. An overview of the spuyaləpabš Trail. So this graphic is the colors are a little bit merging together there, but essentially the trail is going to begin in Puyallup down near the river at the Riverwalk connection on the south side of the river, and will ultimately run along the 167 alignment. We'll tie in with the interurban trail over off of 20th Street, up and over I-5 and 99. We'll come down to 54th Avenue, and there's a couple of legs of the trail at that point, the one that goes up towards Northeast Tacoma by Taylor Way, and the other one that continues on down to Alexander at 509. But what you can also notice is that there's more of the trail that continues all the way down into downtown Tacoma. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but there's two segments of the trail there. One, a portion that Fife will construct, and another portion that the city of Tacoma will construct into downtown Tacoma. So that's the overview of the trail. I guess one thing to point out is it's hard to tell on this graphic, but you can see the round circle there at the interurban trailhead parking lot. And so that we do connect in with the Milton interurban trail at that point. So partner collaboration, this project, the trail alignment was established back in 2021 following a series of studies a couple years earlier that led to the selection of our trail alignment to follow along 167. And then construction began on stage 1B back in 2022. And in 2023, we worked with artists to get the art concepts identified for 3 key locations, as well as a lot of other interpretive content. And that also is the time period where the naming of the trail was completed, and the Puyallup tribe was instrumental in naming the trail. And then in 2023, we also received from the legislature the full funding to build the full scope of the trail. And then where we're at that from that point forward is we've been working with our local partners to work through maintenance and operations roles and responsibilities, and ultimately culminating in memorandums of understanding and agreements for ongoing maintenance of the trail. All right, so let's look at the artwork. So there's 3 primary locations for art that will be displaying. These are Salish tribe artists that have that designed this artwork that is storytelling. So starting on the kind of the east end, there will be one location where the trail crosses underneath 167 leading to the Puyallup Rec Center. And then the second location as we approach Freeman Road, called Wapato Creek South. And then the third and final location is up at 20th Street, where the trail will cross underneath the 167. There's parking at the Puyallup Rec Center and parking at the 20th Street interurban trailhead. Those are the 2 locations for parking. So this here is a visualization of the artwork for the undercrossing to the Puyallup Rec Center. And so as you can see on the approach walls, there's a Lashute seed language on the walls, as well as artwork. And then inside the undercrossing, there is storytelling on both sides. So there will be both entrances on the north and south. And then there is actually, as you approach each going underneath the undercrossing, there's going to be signage that has information that describes what the story is about in both English and in Lashute seed language. It's a really, really cool. And the artist here is Chris Duenas, and he's a member of the Puyallup tribe. The second location happens to be Chris's brother, Anthony Duenas, also of the Puyallup tribe. This is as we approach Freeman Road on some retaining walls that are needed there to support the highway embankment. And this here also is a story, and there will be we call it an overlook. There'll be an overlook off of the edge of the trail where you can get off the trail and look at the artwork, but also there'll be an interpretive sign there with information about the story and what it means and so forth. And then the third location is up at 20th Street. So this is very close to the Milton Interurban Trailhead parking lot. So this is on essentially the abutment wall supporting the bridge for 167 that will be going over the top. This artwork was produced by the Noise Cat art team, and it has an incredible story that will be displayed on that abutment wall. And again, there will be an overlook as just off to the east side that will have a complete description of what the stories are, and again in both English and Lushootseed. We are taking some measures to put an anti-graffiti coating on all of this artwork, and knowing that it could be subject to graffiti, and we certainly hope not, but there's certainly has been other graffiti on other structures in the area. So, but we hope most people would respect the fact that this is art in itself. All right, so let's talk about the progress and timeline. So this graphic here shows the trail from, again, down at the Riverwalk in Puyallup, and in different colors and textures, moving all the way into downtown Tacoma. And so again, the segments are broken up into the various stages that I showed you earlier. So you can kind of see the dark red line is essentially that piece that's within stage 2A. And then the dotted red line is the portion that's within stage 2B. And then the green portion is the portion of the trail that's being constructed as part of stage 1A and 1B, because a little bit of it was constructed in stage 1E. And then the purple and the orange would be that Fife and Tacoma portions of the trail into downtown Tacoma. So this slide here shows the trailhead parking lot down at 20th Street that was completed in 2021. So a portion of the trail is currently open up and over I-5 and down to Highway 99. And there's an interim connection to the Milton Interurban Trailhead, and that will get ultimately reconstructed as part of our next construction project. So stage 1B, we're about 75%. Actually, I heard just a little bit ago that some paving happened this week. So most of the trail is paved within stage 1B now. So some paving happened earlier this week. And then stage 2A, there's some grading work that's been done for the trail within the stage 2A portion. And so next summer, they expect to complete a lot of the trail and start the underpass work and the art installation. And that portion of the trail between Riverwalk and the rec center is expected to be open to the public in 2027. So that project has the lighting, has the signing, wayfinding, overlooks, etc., already in that contract. So that we'll be able to get that portion open up and get it into use. Stage 2B, the final project, that will complete obviously that middle portion that we talked about earlier between the rec center and I-5, but also in the stage 2B contract, we go into the 1B limits of the project, add all of the illumination, add all the signage, wayfinding, and amenities. And so the timeline for getting the 1B portion, which would be from the Milton Interurban Trailhead down to Alexander. I can't give you a really firm date, but right now we're thinking 2027, 2028 is we should be able to get that open to the public in that time frame. It just depends on how quickly our stage 2B contractor can get that portion designed and get the construction going, procure all the light poles, etc. We did not put mile markers on the trail. At least the design is right now, is that at the signage along the trail will tell you how many miles or tenths of a miles it is to the next key location. So I wanted to give a little bit of information that we've been coordinating with Fife and Tacoma. So the portions that go from Alexander down into downtown Tacoma, down to the Theophos Esplanade. So Fife is almost done with their design work, and now they're just working on getting the funding to be able to determine when they can start construction. So we work very closely with the designers that are working on that, also are working on our project. So we work pretty closely with them, and so but they're just about done with that. So Fife just needs to get the funding secured, and then they can advertise that project and get it going. Tacoma is not quite as far along with theirs, but they're about 90% design, and they anticipate beginning construction in 2027. So that's the information we've obtained from both Fife and Tacoma.
All of the trail will be open by fall of 2029, which is also when we expect 167 to be complete, substantially complete, and operationally working with tolls.
Yes, thank you, Ricky. I talked about when 1B portion would be open, but 2B, the middle portion, right now, basically fall of 29 is our completion date for that project. Construction will begin next summer if everything goes as planned. Right now, we've got a lot to do in the next several months to get ready, but we're hoping to get going this next summer, 2026, with early construction on our stage 2B portion. And so we have 26, 27, 28, and by July, August, September of 29, we should have 2B completed. Tacoma, as I understand it, already has funding secured. They had a much bigger project already in the works that portion of the trail fit into, whereas Fife's project is pretty much a standalone kind of trail project. When we broke stage 2 into 2A and 2B, we had enough information at that time already developed where we could get the lighting and the signing and everything into 2A. Obviously 1B, the ship had already sailed. That contract was already under construction. And so now we've got to go back into the 1B project limits with our 2B project and get the rest of the trail completed in the 1B segment. So the project is very expensive. So the trail portion is a pretty small percentage, being that there's so much infrastructure that goes into this project. So pretty small percentage. I would say it's got to be in the 1% range or less. Yeah.
You're probably pretty close, but yeah.
It's mostly, if you think about it, it's mostly grading, paving, drainage, signage, planting, a little bit of structure work. We got the undercrossing is probably one of the most expensive pieces of the trail portion, is that and the artwork is going to cost quite a bit too.
And legislature also gave us the approval to use the toll funds to be able to do maintenance on this. So this gives us a sustained funding source to be able to maintain it long term.
All right, let's talk about transition points. So this graphic here shows two locations where we'll call it transition points. One is the origin down at the Riverwalk. So I've got a little bit of a graphic here on the next slide that will show a little bit more detail on that. And then at the rec center, there's a transition point, right? You can park there, you can, play at the recreation center, whatever. So those are, I guess I would call 2 transition points. But looking at the next slide, so how is it going to connect with Riverwalk? If you start the rec center, you're going to basically come south, come underneath Highway 167, and then you're going to traverse along the highway alignment, and right as the highway comes up to Meridian, the trail will come up to North Levee Road. You'll cross North Levee, and the trail will go along North Levee loop around and come up onto the Puyallup River Bridge. And the Puyallup River Bridge, we're going to be retrofitting that. So currently, that bridge, there's just I think an 8-foot sidewalk on it right now, two traveled lanes and 8 foot. So we're going to take that sidewalk off. We're going to skinny up the lanes. We're going to put a concrete barrier and make a 10-foot wide path there. And so that's where the trail will go. So the trail will go along the east side of the existing bridge. And as you can see in this graphic, you'll come along, you'll come down to, I call that the 4th Street Loop that goes into Fred Meyer. You'll cross the 4th Street Loop, come along there'll be the shared use path will come along 4th Street, cross the access that goes into the apartment complex. And it used to be, is it still the fun center or the skating rink thing there? You know what I'm talking about? Abandoned building now. Okay. So it crosses that entrance and then comes along that entrance and then right down to tie in with the Riverwalk. And there will be, again, there's a kind of an overlook, and there'll be some signage and some signs that talk about the trail and stuff right there. So that's how it connects with the Riverwalk. So this here shows how the trail comes along, following along the east side of the highway. It will cross 26th Street. At 26th Street, there will be rapid flashing beacons for the crossing of 26th Street. And then it'll come up to 20th Street. And at 20th Street, it'll actually be, there'll be a signal that will be activated for pedestrians to cross 20th Street. And then at that point, you follow along the north side of 20th Street, where, as I mentioned earlier, there's that connection, that tie-in point with Milton Interurban Trail. And actually, you can see in this graphic, the interim connection that is there right now. We did that on purpose, didn't put it here because we don't want it in the way for when we build this bridge. So we kind of left it back over there so our contractor can get in there, build the new bridge over 20th Street. And then once that's done, then the ultimate alignment will come right in front of it, where that artwork, where I've shown you that artwork was earlier. So that's our, I guess, connection to the Milton Interurban Trail. The highway is going to be up at around 25 feet above grade, way up high. And then you'll have the slopes that are coming down, and the trail will be off to the lower right, east, running along. And that'll all, and in that particular case, you can see the meandering Surprise Lake tributary. So that's all going to be stream riparian vegetation. So it's going to feel, I would say, probably forested conditions. You're going to have an embankment going up to the left that is getting planted with vegetation. So, and there'll be a fence along there as well. This is the one I wanted to make sure everyone understood this interface too. So this is as you come up to 54th. So I don't know if everyone's familiar enough with the project, but at 54th, we also have an interchange there. It's a half interchange. If you've driven 54th recently, you've probably gone around the new roundabout there. Well, that's where the ramps will take off to the east. So you can get off of 167 at that location, or you can get on 167. But as you can see, the 2 orange lines here, the trail actually splits at this portion. A portion of the trail will go along the north side of the highway and then turn and run up to, and where it terminates is up at the Taylor Way, SR 509 Marine View Drive intersection. And that's already paved. Matter of fact, I drove by here a few months ago when they were paving that. And then the other portion that we talked about earlier is on the south side of the alignment that will come along and follow the alignment down to Alexander. And that's where our project essentially terminates and where Fife picks up and continues on. One thing I wanted to point out here is that once the trail is operational and open, we will be looking to encourage bicyclists to exit SR 509 Marine View Drive and utilize the trail system, because we do have on and off ramps between 509 and 167. And so for safety reasons, we're going to encourage bicyclists to utilize the trail system when they get to Taylor Way. Next steps. So obviously we got to finish constructing it. We got to install all the illumination, all the trail amenities. I like this image because this is what we call our major wayfinding sign. You can see it's got Mount Rainier on the top. It'll give you destinations and the distances. And then on the right, there's a directional map that shows, okay, where are you at in relationship to the trail? And then there's, I think, some of our trail partner information there on the right. And then in the bottom of that, at various locations, there will be some interpretive content that, again, we've worked real closely with the Puyallup tribe to pick various things that we want to kind of highlight. As you leave the Riverwalk and you come up and over the Puyallup River Bridge, circle around on the loop ramp, and then you come up to North Levee Road. Once you cross North Levee, there'll be an overlook, and the old steel Meridian Truss Bridge that sat there for years and years, we saved a small portion of it. It's still sitting out there, that we're going to do a little bit of rehab on that and set it up right there as soon as you get onto the trail. And there will be an overlook with some historical information about that bridge that was built in 1925 and how significant it was to the community. And it'll even have a replica of the original bronze plaque on it that used to be on the bridge. So it's a heritage marker that Puyallup will maintain going forward. From that point, as you get onto the trail just west of Meridian, from there, as you follow along the trail, again, it's going to be down lower and the highway is going to be up higher. You're going to go underneath into the rec center. So there's quite a bit of separation. So the highway is going to be up, trail is going to be down. And then as you get over to the Puyallup Rec Center, again, same thing. Highway is going to be up, not as high, but still higher. And the trail will follow along 167 over to Freeman. At Freeman, then it will run along Freeman, come up to the intersection of Freeman Valley, cross Freeman, cross Valley. Then it's going to run parallel with Valley Avenue until we get up to the Valley Avenue interchange. And at that point, it will separate again from Valley and follow along the highway alignment up to 26th Street and then on up to 20th Street. And that space through there will be, like I described earlier, it'll be very separated and very, I guess I'll say, rural feeling, a lot of trees. Then you get to the Interurban Trailhead parking lot. I think a lot of you probably know what the Milton Interurban Trail will be like. That vegetation is going to take a little while to grow up out there to the east. You've seen all the stream realignment and the plantings. You just wait 3 or 4 years. That's really going to take off in there. And then going up and over I-5 down to 99. And then again, as you get over from 99 up to 12th Street, a big separation. The trail is now on the left or west side of the highway. But again, highway's way up high, trail's way down low, going over to 12th Street. At 12th Street, you're going to have to navigate crossing 12th Street at the intersection, but that's a stop condition. So you'll cross 12th Street, go along 12th Street, and then get back on the alignment east of the highway. And again, very rural environment through there. You're running right along Hylebos Creek. Can kind of see it today, how it's all been restored. And it'll be that all the way over to 54th. And then at 54th, you got to cross 54th, like I mentioned earlier. Then you got your choices of which way you're going to go. And again, the trail is separated elevation wise until you get over down near 509, where the trail is now kind of back down at the same level as the highway is at 509. There is a lot of barrier along the project, but I don't want to give you the impression that we've put up barriers along the entire length of the highway. Those are hazards to vehicles as well, but it just turns out that there is quite a bit of barrier along the project for various reasons. But there are certainly going to be some locations where a vehicle could leave the highway and go over the embankment and eventually make their way down to where the trail is. But I'd have to kind of look at our design and point out where those locations are where that could occur.
However, the trail itself is still outside the clear zone that's identified for safety. So it's generally within or out, the trail would be outside the area that requires a vehicle to recover on those slopes. So either it'd be barrier separated or it'd have slopes that are recoverable for a driver to.
One of the things that we are trying to implement along the trail is in a lot of cases where the embankment comes down and the trail is here, in a lot of cases we have drainage ditches that are collecting and treating stormwater runoff. And then also we're chain link fence, not that a chain link fence is going to stop a vehicle, but there is the trail kind of sits up here and you've got kind of a ditch section, if you will. We have been working pretty closely with the cities of Puyallup, Fife, and Tacoma to identify roles and responsibilities for maintenance. Not all of the trail is within WSDOT limited access. Some of it is just within the local city right of way. And so we've been authorized to utilize the toll revenues, the toll funding to help pay for maintenance of the trail facility within our limited access. So there is some financial partnerships that need to be put in place, and we're working on that with regards to putting memorandums of understandings together. And actually it's going quite well as far as itemizing everything out. What we don't yet know for sure is we're investigating the ability to hire a third-party vendor to do a lot of the maintenance. And I'll say patrolling and lighter duty maintenance. And then if you get into something that's, requires heavy equipment or something, that would be kind of a different animal in itself. We are working really hard to get that in place so that once the trail is open, we've got structure so that maintenance is addressed. And the one thing that I guess I would point out is every year we get the opportunity to look at what our expenditures were for maintenance, and we get to go back to our toll division and say, we allocated this much funding for trail maintenance, and it turns out we need more for this and less for this. So right now we're just kind of trying to do our best guess at what we think it's going to take to maintain it and the various amenities. But we have once a year, we get to revisit that and say, okay, we didn't get it quite right. We're going to put a little more here, a little less there, that kind of thing.
Well, I want to really thank you guys once again for coming down, Lizzie, as well. This is such an important regional project. So many people in this room have worked on it in one way or another, citizen advocate, agency folks, local agency folks, and we're super excited about it. And it's a really big deal. It's a major part of our regional trail systems, and probably a reason why several folks came tonight was to hear about it. So I want to thank you once again for taking the time. Really appreciate it. Yeah. Hi, I'm the director of ForeverGreen Trails. My name is Larry Levine. As John mentioned, we have some business to do because it is our annual meeting. And first and foremost, our bylaws require us to hold elections for the board. Our board is made, there are 11 seats on our board. There are, as John mentioned, 4 different member types of local jurisdiction, business, nonprofit, and individual. And the bylaws lay out that there are 3 seats for jurisdictions, 3 for nonprofit organizations, and the rest are business/individual members. Our board terms are for 3 years, and someone can be elected to 2 3-year terms, and then they got to sit it out for at least a year before they stand for another 3-year term, although they could be appointed by the board. The board at any point during the year can appoint folks to vacancies. They only serve until the annual meeting each year. So we just want to make sure that the membership has the power to put people on our board for the 3-year terms. Those appointments don't count toward term limits, by the way. So what's on screen here is a slate of candidates, folks who are willing to stand for election to the board, but it's not this is who you must vote for. We welcome folks to provide nominations from the floor, and then after that I'll ask if any folks in the room who are nominated either from the floor or on the screen there to say a few words, but it's always just a proper procedure that we welcome folks to make nominations to the board. But you do need to be a member in good standing to serve on our board and also to vote. So are there any other nominations from the floor in the room here? And I will look at the chat on Zoom. Okay. So I wanted to welcome folks. I think we have Bob and Bree and Ryan are here in person, and then pinch hitting for Henry perhaps is Elisa here to say a few words. So Bob, why don't you give us a quick hi, and why should folks reappoint you to the board of ForeverGreen Trails? You might know Bob from recent trail awards, such as a Lifetime Achievement Award from our Trails Conference. Bree, do you want to say hi? And Ryan? And Lisa, do you want to speak to Henry's nomination? Dealt with, and several people in this room have dealt with Henry a lot when he was with RCO, and he's a really can-do, energetic guy and with a lot of perspective. So, and since we're all about getting the dollars to our local jurisdiction partners, he's quite a get for Parks Tacoma and also for ForeverGreen Trails. So, if unless there are concerns or questions of the nominees, is there a motion to approve that slate that you see?
I move to approve the slate.
That's Fred Johnston, our secretary and one of our many fine caterers for this evening. And that's Cody Geddes, another one of our board members, chair of our event programming committee. So is there any further discussion about the slate? If not, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, say nay. I'm looking in the Zoom room for any comments. Not seeing any. Okay, great. Thank you for being willing to join the board, continuing to serve, et cetera, et cetera. And you'll notice that blank in one of the nonprofit slots. I think it'd be great if we had, we were to have the Tacoma Washington Bike Club. It would be great if we had a running organization involved in ForeverGreen Trails. So if you have ideas, if you're familiar with local running clubs, please reach out to me, and I will contact them and try to get them interested in us and what we do and how we do it, and getting them plugged in. So thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. Our strategic plan provides 6 long-term goals and also objectives that provide the foundation for our annual work plan. These goals were prioritized at last January's board retreat, excuse me, and objectives to meet those goals that you see on the right side of this table were updated based on discussions at the retreat, also feedback from stakeholder interviews that we did with a number of agencies and organizations, and also staff input. So in our actual work plan, These are then further detailed into actions that are broken down by quarter of the year. You know, in Q1, we're going to do these things, in Q2, et cetera, as well as details on which of our 3 standing committees, executive, events, and organization development, basically money and people, human resources. Which of these committees is going to help with that work? And I should mention, as a little side note, you do not have to be a board member in order to serve on these committees. And we welcome anyone who is interested to contact me, and we'll get you plugged in. We have a few folks actually in the room who are non-board members who sit on committees. So thank you so much to them. And you can plug into and help us do our thing better and better. So rather than get down to the level of these actions where we are, you know, we'll leave it to the board to give the management of me and the committees in terms of the actual fine details of the work plan. So what you're seeing is essentially the foundations of the work plan. We thought we would just kind of show them to you since they've been updated and this year, and we're want to welcome you, any questions that you might have or any feedback and suggestions. Like, I think 4 and 5 are too similar. They should just be combined, and the objectives should be, you know, could be that, or, you know, anything. But I thought I saw a hand.
It's like your mission statement or your vision statement versus
And so is it something, so I'll note that, you know, you want us to take a look at that and see if it should it be different, and should it be differentiated in a certain way? What do you think?
it just looks like the overarching policy of this organization. So your vision or your mission statement applies to all those other goals.
Yeah, I mean, you know, ideally they would sort of flow from and be congruent, right, with a mission statement. It is fundamentally different than the mission statement, which speaks in more general terms. And this is a little more specific about you know, like policy standards, programming, and so it gets a little more granular, as you would expect, right? Any other questions or comments on these? You will still have an opportunity, if you want, to give me feedback and the board feedback on these things, because we, you know, always take a look at these annually to make sure that we're headed in the right direction. Since I joined the organization, these have gotten like better and better. I just feel like they are more responsive to the challenges that I see as your staff, the realities in grant programs, the realities out in the communities. So I feel like these are greatly improved, and also they're a lot more readable than what we used to have. So for what it's worth, I think we're headed in the right direction there. So
New to this, do you have a vision and a mission statement?
for sure. Off the top of my head, I cannot recite it for you, but I can. It's on our website. But essentially, it talks about that we support the development of a trail system that connects all of the communities in Pierce County via, and then it kind of lists out, you know, coordination, you know, advocacy, collaboration, those kinds of things. That's the mission. The vision is more like, you know, it's that imaginary look of, you know, our region's future with this trail system. You know, birds singing and small children are happy and things like that. But it gets a little more, you know, and it refers to like people are healthier, the economy is stronger as a result of this trail system. No other feedback? Okay, we can continue on. So we have a number of updates for you. first and maybe most immediate, most important is the Pierce County Pros Plan. And then I'll have a few words about legislative session, a very concerning law a bill that's introduced in the House of Representatives, and then some happy news regarding the connection between the Scott Pearson Trail and the Cushman Trail, which many of you know is rather dicey. An update for the Elm Prairie line, which might surprise some of you, I hope, pleasantly. And then as we have been doing this year, a little update on the Puyallup Riverwalk Fund Drive. So the pros plan of the county, the Park, Recreation, and Open Space Plan, is so important to our organization's vision of a county whose communities are connected by a network of trails that it was the focus of our Trails Conference this year. I hope that you were able to attend. I just posted the materials for it on our website if you missed out on attending the conference. The draft plan is out now, and public comment is being collected, and you can access it and the virtual open house and also an online survey at piercecountywa.gov/pros, or you can literally use this QR code if you can hit it with your phone right now. Test it. Flyers. Oh, you did bring flyers. Excellent. So are they on this table over here? Okay, great. So we have a little square table over here. We got some printed materials about that. This is super duper important. And one of the chapters of the Park, Recreation, and Open Space Plan is the Regional Trails Plan. And then don't forget, policy nerd tip, never forget the appendices of any plan, because that's where a lot of heavy lifting gets done, and a lot of detail as well. So please check that out. I'll be briefing our board very soon on the draft plan, and we'll be making comments. We also anticipate testifying before the county council and communicating with individual council members if that's needed regarding any changes that we think will improve the plan. So while the December 5th comment deadline is listed there, it's not your only opportunity to speak to the plan. It's more about, the draft plan and then before it goes to council. So I'm getting nods from our pals in Pierce County Parks. Oh, I apologize. I don't know if I have my pointer here. Whoa, these poor folks. Okay, wanting to join us. And so, yeah, we don't have dates for when it's going to go to council. There's people who deal with all the air traffic control of things at council. But we'll be communicating through our outreach channels. So make sure you're signed up for our newsletter and you're following us on social media. Our pals at Foothills will be also announcing stuff. So, and got lots of pals here. The Tacoma Washington Bike Club has strong outreach channels as well. So we will be helping the county get folks plugged in and involved. And just as a little side note, we are also providing detailed feedback to the county council regarding the 6-year capital facilities plan and the biennial budget, which are both happening simultaneously now. As a matter of fact, Bree literally has an AirPod in her ear listening to the committee of the whole where we were setting up, we were testifying. So your team is working hard for you and Trails, and there's a lot to follow. And that's why, I think that's why you need folks on the scene. You need staff to be looking at this stuff a lot and consistently. So we're have already been in contact with council members regarding some needed changes in the CFP and the budget. But this is another super important document. It's renewed every 6 years. So this merry-go-round doesn't come around as often as your biennial budget or your capital facilities plan, which is annually updated. So while we have our key folks from Pierce County Parks here, are there any super crucial questions about the pros plan? Because we're a little bit behind.
Things that do on this one is climate and safety. I think that those are two new subject matters that are mandated by the state in the proposal. And they just included those. new in there. So.
You might be making a reference to the comprehensive plan.
Well, maybe that's.
Yeah. So, but I mean, so the comp plan is, I was talking about our strategic plan, and those long-term goals and the objectives are our foundation for a work plan. The comp plan that's a policy foundation for a local government. And so you're going to see all the plans should be, congruent and complying with that. If they say we're going to have, comp plan says we're going to have trails, your parks plan better have trails, or you can get it tossed out, if we're not being consistent with the comp plan. So I think that's what that was about. Yeah, no problem. There's no shortage of plans in local government. Yeah, or in state agencies. Any other questions? Okay, well, Tiffany and Travis are here from Pierce County Parks, and so you could collar them maybe if you had any questions. Anything you wanted to add? Or?
If you go to the pros website, you can sign up to receive plan updates. So you'll get an email as we schedule public hearings or release the final draft, those sorts of things. So if you're interested in tracking the progress, I would suggest signing up if you haven't already.
Always, yep. Do that. Okay, great. So moving on to our next important thing. Okay, well, so for Bree's benefit, here's the required animal in a Larry presentation. So why is the dog there? I often talk about two dogs of advocacy. One is the watchdog and the other is the sled dog. And so during legislative session, I put in my more imposing fangs and my big ears and stuff, and try to look out for trail interests in the both in all levels of government, but our state legislature is what we're and the federal level are what we're going to be talking about here. And there's apparently some interest from the Association of Washington Cities regarding, I'm going to say, e-moto regulation, electric motorcycles. I'm not talking about e-bikes, things that you can pedal, regardless of whether it's electric assist or a pedalable bike with a throttle. I'm not talking about those. These are e-motos. I know I've had some comments even from local area mayors about issues, and I'm hearing it a lot both from soft surface trail advocacy organizations like Evergreen Mountain Bike Alliance, paved trail groups, Cascade, Washington Bikes. I'm hearing it from folks actually East Coast, West Coast, you name it. It's an issue in Manhattan with delivery drivers of these things. So I think there's some interest building about some kind of regulation. So we will be paying attention to that. Last legislative session, there was a bill called the Safe Systems Approach that did not pass. I was a little surprised about that. It was a bit of a Frankenstein bill. It had a bunch of really good housekeeping things that needed to be updated, and made it really clear that if there's a bike trail and a WSDOT facility construction project affects and impacts the trail, that the trail has to be restored, and lots of really good stuff. But it was like housekeeping things that had just accumulated over time. And then there was this other thing, and the other thing is what was concerning to me. That provision would have allowed WSDOT to, under certain circumstances, exempt themselves from the complete streets requirements. So if they had a project on a state highway, currently they have to provide for all modes, and that's a good thing. The reason why there is some interest in making some exceptions to that is that there might be certain instances where it's cheaper, more preferable, more pleasant, whatever, to have that accommodation for active mode users on an adjacent local agency roadway, let's say, or local agency right-of-way. So that sounds reasonable, Larry. What was the concern? There just wasn't enough specificity, frankly, under what threshold they could be exempt from the complete streets requirements. And so if you think about it, if you have a big topographical difference between the state route and the local facility where it's going to go. You're requiring active mode folks to maybe go up a hill or down a hill, and then go along that. And then usually the destination they're trying to reach is along that state route. And so that, out of direction travel is not great. And if you think about it, they might have been requiring that active mode user to literally cross the state highway twice, once to get off of it onto the local facility, and once again to reach their destination. So it's not that I contacted the bill sponsors and also WSDOT staff who are involved in that bill. And I have a meeting set up with at least the WSDOT folks to talk about how to get what's a reasonable amount of the level of specificity so that these things can happen. Because who knows, it could be, a particularly relevant bill for like the Fairfax Bridge area in our region. If that bridge gets rebuilt, it might be that it makes more sense for WSDOT to put money into the Foothills Trail and making that connection happen. Just as an example, I'm not saying that I've scoped that out at all. It's just like maybe that's a potential application of this kind of exception. So we'll be looking at that. I'm not aware of the sponsors. I haven't seen that bill pre-filed yet. Excuse me, sorry. There was also a blood alcohol limit bill to lower the blood alcohol limit from 0.08% to 0.05% last session. Did not pass, much to my surprise. I expect that to come back because it's a really important issue. The data I'm seeing on crashes, serious injury and fatal collisions is a really high incidence, not surprisingly, of inebriation or this was specifically a blood alcohol limits, but there's lots of ways you can be impaired as a driver. And I apologize, I didn't mean to not highlight that we do have the dates now for the Parks and Great Outdoors Legislative Day and reception. Those are two separate things. The reception is actually kind of a good, handy networking time at the governor's mansion. And then the legislative day is usually done remotely. And so we'll be promoting this over and over in the coming couple months. And I know several folks have been to it, to these events or participated in them, and they're really crucial for advocacy. It's a great opportunity to tell the story of maintaining funding, whether it's an RCO program or WSDOT program, you name it, or even to make a pitch for a state appropriation for your local project. So I usually, in the legislative day for the Parks and Great Outdoors, I am happy to lead any of the meetings for our area legislators. So you're not there alone. There's a script. We have it all programmed out, and we'll have information and stuff. So both that Ledge Day as well as the Wabites Lobby Day, they do a really good job of prepping people with information. So it really is it makes it really easy to be an advocate. You don't have to be doing this for decades at all. You could just roll in, and they kind of make it like a Betty Crocker cake where you can have success no matter your level of experience. So I encourage you to consider those. And that webinar, I just happened to notice that there's a webinar coming up, which, boy, if there was ever a challenging environment, I think we're in it. I think Washington State, I think, is okay, largely because we passed our biennial budget, this past session. So I don't expect it to be too grim for active recreation and active mobility funding this year, but next budget year, all bets are off. I mean, and I would never fault a state legislator for prioritizing, as much as we all love trails, prioritizing making sure people are housed and fed, et cetera. And social services are getting squeezed. So I expect there to be a lot of requests about that, especially from local governments. So just that's your advocacy kind of forecast. And that bad federal anti-rail banking bill, that QR code will get you to the page, to that resource that Rails to Trails Conservancy put together. This bill sucks. I don't know how else to put it. This will not just prevent future rail banking by making it so financially onerous. This could literally undo rail trails that we have across the country. So this is an existential threat for our community. So fortunately, we do have a local representative, Emily Randall from District 6. That's kind of the Gig Harbor and Key Pen peninsulas and down into parts of Tacoma and so that area. She is a member of the House Natural Resources Committee. Please contact her. Tell her that especially if you're in her district, tell her that this bill's a stinker. Do reference the bill number. But even if she's not your congresswoman, just take down. That's that phone number. There is just the main switchboard. You will need to know who your representatives are. But please do heed the call to action.
But I think you mentioned a call you were on for that bill that maybe you thought you could get access to. Was it that bill or was
I think that they recorded that webinar, and I'll try to share out that recording link with especially our partner organizations. You're with Tacoma Washington Bike Club, but that resource there, that fact sheet, I think it's a 2-pager, really lays it out in detail. And it was, I don't have any information about, does this bill have any legs or whatever, but it's serious enough that, you don't snooze it and hope it goes away. You stamp it out. And I was glad to say when I brought it to our pals at Pierce County Parks, they elevated it right to Executive Mello, and they made sure that their government affairs team was aware of it. And so I'm like, yeah, that's how we have to operate as a trails community, to make sure have both. It's not just the dollars, also the having good policy for active recreation and active mobility. So any other questions on that?
Please explain rail banking.
Sure, thank you. Really appreciate the question. So rail banking is a process through which a railroad that is no longer being used can go from an technically active, even if it's unused state, into an abandoned state, and then another party applies for what's called a temporary or interim trail use permit with the federal agency called the Surface Transportation Board. They're the ones who regulate rail lines and freight rail. And so if there's agreement about that, it's a very easy sentence to say, it's a more complicated process, then that corridor is preserved in total, and it doesn't revert to the underlying landowners. And a trail or other uses, frankly, they're often used for utility purposes as well. But it's rail banked and preserved as a corridor, so that should the corridor be needed for rail use again, it could be reverted back. I've only heard of that ever happening once, and I couldn't even name it. The facility or the railroad that was reactivated that once rail banked. But it's a really important law. It's been on the books for many years. Occasionally it has some attack against it. And this is,
the Rails to Trails documentary that came out of talks a bit about it. If you haven't seen that, go watch it. It's a real nice show.
Yeah. And I think we Tacoma Washington Bike Club, I think Foothills, and also ForeverGreen Trails, we put it out on our social media, a link to that recording.
It explains how rail municipal, how it's such a controversial thing. And then rail bank came along, and they got rail bank. In Pierce County, our parks director was out purchasing right away. So we didn't rail bank it.
Yeah, there are different pathways through which you can acquire a railroad corridor or right of way for trail, and this is one of them. It's a very popular one. Any other questions about this? Okay, well, maybe you want to hear some good news. At our Pierce County Trails Conference, this past September, we presented a trail award to PennMet Parks for their completion of the southern extension of the Cushman Trail on the Gig Harbor Peninsula. That was part of their community center project. And however, the gap between Cushman Trail and Scott Pearson Trail, the one that goes across the Narrows Bridge, that connection over SR 16 here on 24th Street Northwest, it has been really in need of improvements for active mode user safety for quite a long time. There's actually been a fatality there in the past. So we have been communicating and coordinating with WSDOT folks literally since 2023. And so we have been in communication with them and PennMet Parks to align the trail, their end of the trail, with the existing crosswalk on the street. So really what I have here are some preliminary improvements. They recently made, and I have a few photos. So WSDOT staff have recently made several paint improvements on the ground in the area to renew stop bars and other pavement markings and better denote crossings for trail users. So these images that I'm going to page through here are from the west end, so the Scott Pearson side, toward the Cushman side. I hope that this makes some sense. And sometimes it'll progress along, but it'll face the other way. So sorry about that. But what you're seeing here in this, the big photograph in the lower left for those on Zoom, you can just see on the right side of that, that is a painted striped kind of buffer. That is the exit of the Pearson Trail. So that's the northern end of the Pearson Trail, right at the on-ramp for SR 16 for folks wanting to head into Tacoma. So obviously our photographer is in the painted crosswalk there. And that's looking the other way, the same yellow painted median that's looking the other way at the west end of the road. So I've been told that in sometime in 2026, WSDOT plans to install some vertical elements like flex posts to further delineate these north-south pedestrian crossings in the yellow painted islands. There will also be some signage as well. These improvements were done with existing materials and existing funding as they're able to, they're like programming this important need in and not delaying it. So I really appreciate it, even though it looks a little partially baked. That's because it is partially baked. They do intend to come back. So they just wanted to get something on the ground recently, rapidly in recognition of the Cushman Trail southern end being completed. And yeah, so I think that those vertical elements, whether they're flex posts or whatever, will help draw attention to those two painted crossing yellow islands. I am unsure if any curbing will be included in that to provide like a harder refuge, if you will. But I still appreciate the responsiveness of WSDOT to this. And now that the communication is flowing, I think we can follow up with them about how well it's operating. It could be that this might, if we have feedback, we could talk about how, is this or is this not up to the county's standard for what a trail crossing is or should be. So, but the communication is flowing and there are some improvements on the ground, I'm glad to say. Any questions about that? The next thing, I've really kind of happy update about the Yelm Prairie Line Trail. It's not the announcement Bob wants me to make, but it's another good one. For folks who don't know, the Yelm Prairie Line Trail is a trail plan between Yelm in Thurston County and Roy in Pierce County. The trail will connect our two county trail systems using a railroad corridor, most of which was purchased by Yelm from Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad several years ago. And only like the first phase of the trail had been developed. And that was even after that had been developed early on, but then nothing had been done for many years. And then when Bob sicked me on the project, he pointed the dog and said, "Go." So for a little historical context, though, the Prairie Line Railroad used to stretch all the way from Kalama on the Columbia River and into downtown Tacoma. And it was the major north-south railroad in our region, responsible for creating many of the small rural towns along the way. All those ones like in South Thurston County, and then also, Roy itself. Those towns are there because of the railroad. So if you've ridden the Yelm-Tenino Trail through, Yelm, Tenino, Rainier, and maybe Bucota as well. So the railroad really gave rise to these towns. And it's also so if you've ridden the Yelm-Tenino Trail, you have ridden part of the corridor. If you have walked the Prairie Line Trail in downtown Tacoma, same corridor. But this particular project is to just connect Yelm and Roy. It was supplanted by the waterfront railroad that you might be familiar with in Tacoma. It's a flatter route, which allows you to have longer trains and which is more efficient. And that just spelled the end of this railroad as a going concern. So it's also part of a cross-state trail. If you notice there, it is between the Paloustic Cascades Trail to the east and the Wilpa Hills Trail to the west. And if we fill in the gap there, we will have a cross-state trail heading right through our region. This image just shows some a little bit about the phasing, or rather what's complete, what's in construction, that little pink magenta thing right over the Nisqually River, and what has yet to be constructed but is owned in public ownership, and what is not yet in public ownership in red in downtown Roy, still owned by Burlington Northern. But I just recently had a very promising meeting in late October with BNSF folks and several elected officials and their staff. I think there may be, inshallah, there might be the logjam might be finally breaking on Burlington Northern being willing to consider letting go of that last mile that we need to reach the public right-of-way in Roy. So there's a follow-up meeting I have scheduled for early next month. So stay tuned. So in terms of what's been done in 2020, ForeverGreen Trails helped the city of Yelm apply for funding for the phase 2 to get across the river, but only a partial award was made, because when the dollars run out in the Recreation and Conservation Office grants, that's when the money stops. So they got some of their requests, but not all of it. So we split the project into 2 phases, 2 and 2B, B for bridge. And in 2022, we applied again and got a $1.3 million grant for this project. And shortly thereafter, the grant award was announced and design and permitting work began. And phase 2B of this project, that dashed pink part going over the river and landing in Pierce County, is currently in construction. And the reason why it goes, like, why would Yelm build trail into Pierce County at all? And that was a strategic thing. If we go that far, we reach a designated high needs area, and we were able to lower Yelm's match requirement from 50% to 20%. So strategy. You can just see on the north end of the upper right corner, Miles Sand and Gravel. That's still a going concern, but they're nearing the end of their likely use of their property, and they'll probably want to redevelop it or sell it or something. But you can just see, that's just to orient you. And just north of those oxbows, the old oxbows of the river, where it used to travel before meandering to its current route and current course. And that red line just shows a potential public access for the McKenna area, along perhaps with an easement from Miles Sand and Gravel and parcels that the county already owns that are abutting the highway. So there's some interesting opportunities there, but that I happen to notice along the way, things that you notice. So as a recap, phase 2 was the approach to the bridge, which was has been completed. Phase 2B includes the conversion of the railroad bridge for trail use across the Nisqually River. It's a short section of the trail, but man, it's a really picturesque one. It's going to look awesome. the river, the mountain views, the mountain was not out that day. So I don't have a picture of the mountain, but the river views were great. Crossing of the Nisqually River here is going to be the gem of the whole project, I think. This is a view from Nisqually Land Trust parcel. And their strategic plan as an organization calls for increased access to these properties for stewardship and education. And they're relying on the trail to accomplish that goal and to support wildlife and habitat enhancement projects and provide river access. So they're a partner and supporter. And after several years of planning, I'm really happy to say that it's currently underway. And Yelm officials are estimating that we're going to be done with this phase in December of this year. So yes, that's right. That was the reaction I was looking for. So we've been at this for quite a while, like for 5 years, right, Bob? And you know, advocates in Thurston County kind of sort of for significantly longer. It's been on the books for a while. The challenges are right. We have to get that last mile of corridor. So we're in discussions. We have an active gravel mining operation. That's an issue. And then of course, money. That's always an issue. And if we look at the county's priorities, you know, there's an understandable prioritization to invest where the population centers are. But I think there's also like a call out that recognizes special opportunities as well. And I would argue that having a trailhead within Pierce County that connects you directly to 50 plus miles of trails that we don't have to maintain in Thurston County is a pretty cool opportunity. It's also the only designated connection between our two trail systems. There will be another connection on the Nisqually River I-5 bridge when that gets replaced, but it doesn't go all the way through to the rest of our county trail system that's planned. This is it. And if you've ridden the STP, you know how much that highway is a stinker. And everyone, whether they're riding the STP or they are not, but they live in the area, everyone would love to have a nicer alternate route for the cyclists to be on. And as we know also from the 410 bridge being out and the way the Foothills Trail was the hero of the rural communities there for mobility, there similarly is no network redundancy here at all in the roadway system. It's the highway, or you have to go all the way to I-5. That's quite a distance. Maybe not as bad as the luckily Enumclaw detour, but this is going to add some network redundancy. And I'd like to think that since it was designed to hold up a railroad and it's pictured it's holding up some sort of large vehicle, that it could also be used for emergency access. Not an engineer. So I just wanted to mention that we have, I'll be promoting the ribbon cutting of that when that happens. Okay. We said we were going to say it. We've been saying it all most of the year. We are, along with our pals at Foothills, doing a fund drive for the Puyallup River Walk Trail. And we are at almost $10,000 of our $15,000 goal. And it's a crucial project because Puyallup is planning to apply for grants in this round of Recreation and Conservation Office trail grants. We need to have, we really want to successfully complete this fund drive. There are little table tents and some flyers on that table. Take on this little square table here, take flyers, put them in local businesses, share them with folks. Please get the word out and get them to each of the flyers have the QR code that you see there that will get you right to the site to make a donation. It's sure a little bit about the local dollars that we'll be raising, but it's more about showing the grant agency's strong community support. It is the difference between getting the award and not. I guarantee you. I've crunched the data. If you went to Trails and Ales, I went on and on about it, and there's a recording where you can watch me go on and on about it on our website. It's super important. And it's not just a Puyallup thing. As you may know, it is part of our 18-mile trail loop that we are constructing. We heard folks from WSDOT talk about the yellow and green parts, the Puyallup Riverwalk Trail phases, and you can see the project in question at the bottom there circled. And Sumner is busy doing their gap in pink over the White River. So we're knocking these things out, and we could have a trail loop in connecting a whole bunch of communities in our region. That would be awesome. And you know, Mayor Dave and I are going through the couch cushions at Edgewood to get money for their connection. Now, we've been in meetings with Edgewood and Milton to have a coordinated approach about their gaps, but right now the focus is on the Riverwalk Trail. So I hope you will help us get the word out about that. And I mentioned there's a second dog, right? There, besides the watchdog, there's the sled dog. And the sled dog takes our jurisdictions where they want to go, toward large piles of money, generally. And also, since from a previous presentation, the sled dog was getting smart and crunching data and looking at things. And so this is the smart sled dog here. I wanted to get any feedback, any questions that you guys have about any of the information that we had tonight, thoughts about our work plan, suggestions for our board, and we'll try to carry them forward. Great, yeah. And it can be a win-win-win, like, Foothills is bringing folks on the trail with, the R2R and the B&O half marathon, right? And it's a revenue generator for them. It's building the base. It's, encouraging healthy, active lifestyles. And it's challenging to do that on, 1.5 mile long trail. And so that's why we need to, complete the 18-mile trail. I'm drooling at that, we need those connected facilities, ideally, so it's more accessible to folks. It could be, part trail, part on-street routes and stuff. Picture your own, the street that you live on. How much use would that street get if that street was not connected to other streets? Like, what would be the point of driving up and down the street if it was not connected to other streets? And trails trails are similar in that regard. Bree folks from Foothills, she and I, we have it like one of those bat phones. We just pick it up and it just rings directly. We were just talking with WSDOT about a pedestrian crossing safety improvement near Enumclaw, but to provide access to the Foothills Trail. And so even though ForeverGreen Trails, our service area is Pierce County, we're always looking a little bit beyond, right? Like the Yelm Prairie Line Trail and Cushman Trail, connections into, Federal Way, and also, right. And the technology's there.
I would
Fred.
echo, I've had several near misses on Foothills related to trying to get across what I call safely driveway across the line. It really should be automatically significant block where there are people with turn. The little fixes like that, I think there are some safety improvements trails already we have.
Is that in Ording?
Yes.
Ording is doing a Safe Streets for All planning process, which I applaud that for a small community like that to do that. That's great. And Bob and Bree and I are on the advisory committee for that. And so, be at the table or be on the table or be on the menu, as the saying goes. Like we have to participate in these things and forward those suggestions and hold their feet to the fire in the planning.
We can get you the latest update. There's a delay happening, but I would have to talk to our project manager to fully understand it. I'm happy to send you an explanation.
Crossing improvements happening and trail standards are underway. Anything else? Going once, going twice? Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you to my board members who provided the refreshments, who helped, set up the room and stuff. Folks who brought clickers or provided the room itself. Thank you, Cody. I really appreciate it. We couldn't do this without you, and also our awesome sponsors. And don't hesitate to be in touch. We're here to serve. And if something occurs to you later on, there is time about our work plan or whatever, I always welcome taking time out to talk to our members about, suggestions and even if you have questions. Anyway, thank you so much for coming to our annual meeting this year. I really appreciate it.